It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, November 18th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that loves it when the Flyers just gets business done.
Yeah, they've been able to do a little of that.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Still searching for a great candidate for your company? Don't search, just match with Indeed. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite social media, Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, you name it. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're going to get to the preview of tonight's game against the Colorado Avalanche and our nemesis of the week. But some interesting goings on versus the Buffalo Sabres from a lineup perspective, from a results perspective, and some good, some a little concerning, but let's get right into it. Sean Couturier back in the lineup, which meant Morgan Frost sat. And the interesting line creation of Noah Cates centering Anthony Rashard and Matvey Michkov, I think, turned some heads a little bit before the game and in the game, right?
Yeah, it had a real good game. I don't know if it's a long-term line, but it definitely had good chemistry for that game. I think the Sabres help because their defense is really bad.
Well, there's that too.
But as far as that line, as far as how they were working, it was good. Will it wake up Cates offensively like they hope it will? I don't think so. But he is playing the defense that, some of those two players don't. And maybe that'll be a balance. We'll see.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think it's something that needs a little bit more time to cook,
Right.
but I think there's a lot of potential there. And if in like 3 to 5 games you see Noah Cates's activity jump up a little bit, then I think it has some staying power.
Right. Yeah, I think that would be the key. If you can get offense out of Cates, then it's going to have staying
Well,
power.
and
Or
Michkov getting
yeah, I
points
mean,
too, which
he's
is the
going to get
most
his
important
points.
part, right?
I mean, he's going to get his points on any line. Rashard's getting a little more now, so we'll see. I still think he has to score goals more than anything, but yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Of course, it was Erik Johnson's 1,000th NHL game. They're doing the official ceremony stuff for that tonight against his former team, the
Yeah.
Avalanche. So that just makes sense. So looking forward to that. Sam Ersson is still out, which is concerning. We're going to dig into that question in the next segment. But Emil Andrae got hurt during this game. He left it midway through. No word yet as of practice on Sunday in terms of his availability, but that is definitely a concern of mine given how well he was playing and especially his role on power play 1, right?
Yeah, it's funny, and he's really good, obviously, on power play 1. And
Yes.
I don't know when the hit happened. People are texting me, "Did you see it? Did you?" No, I didn't see anything. I have no idea what happened to him, when it happened to him. All of a sudden, I just noticed he wasn't playing. So I don't know. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, it's a very big question. Looking at the Sabres game, I think the key for me here was that they really, I would say, other than when the Sabres were in complete and utter desperation mode at the end of the game and got a couple, the Flyers kept pressing, even when
Yeah,
they were way ahead, like throughout this game. And I really think that was a huge factor here that they just never took their foot off the gas.
they didn't until the Sabres
Right.
pulled the
That's what
goalie.
yeah.
And that was odd because there was a play that Travis Konecny made that easily could have made that game 4-3. I don't think the Sabres were ever going to win, but it could have made it 4-3 at the time. And it just was weird. It was almost like, I don't know, a brain fart or something like that. But for the most part, yes, most part, you're right. I still don't think they played a full 60. And that's still the concerning part for me is they still haven't done that. Even on this winning streak, still haven't done that.
Right. They've won the 3 games in a row, and I think goaltending on both sides of the fence here for the Sabres and the Flyers were a factor here
Yeah.
because Ivan Fedotov, second really strong performance in a row,
Yep.
which was absolutely huge for the Flyers and for him given the Sam Ersson situation.
Yeah, no question. I mean, that's why I told people on the show, we said it. You have to toe the line on goalies like this, especially new into the league, post game. And he's honest. Like, the one thing I learned about him, from talking to him a bit, he's honest. And so he said he didn't change that much because people are like, well, what did you change from, when you were losing to now? And it's really not that much. It's more about the communication between him and his players. And we talked about that. And I think that's better. And so that's a big thing. And look, Devin Levi, he had a good game. I know you can't say it's hard to say someone had a good game, but he did. There was really, I don't even know if I could fault him for one goal. That's how bad their defense was. But he made some outstanding saves. Like the Flyers put a lot of pressure on him.
He did, but the Flyers were also able to solve him, I think, in a way that maybe with some other goalies they've faced so far this season, they haven't
I
had
think that's
as
fair.
much luck with. Looking at the Flyers' performance over this 3-game win streak, 4.33 goals per game, which is much higher
Uh-huh.
than they've
Oh, yeah.
been so far this season. And getting well above that 3-goal threshold is key to victory in a lot
It
of
is.
games, right?
I do think there's a little improvement, and I do think it's the ebb and flow of the system. They weren't as bad as what they were doing before, and I don't think
Right.
they're as good as what the height is now for goal scoring. It's somewhere in between. That's what I think.
Correct. I agree. And if you look at shots for and against in this 3-game stretch, they're essentially even, 31.3 to 31.01 shots for and against per game, right? The season as a whole, 27 shots per game for, 28.6 against. So both of those stats are going up at the same time, but they're getting through a little bit more, which is the big
Yes.
difference.
That is a big difference, and sometimes that's quality, sometimes it is guys going to the net. There's more guys going to the net now,
Yes.
no question. We do have to talk about the analytics lying, though, because the possession, like the Sabres killed them on possession, and it didn't matter. Like, that wasn't the game.
Right. And I think that that's, the big question mark here in terms of sustainability
Right.
is you do dig into these numbers here and it's not really solid. There's a little
Oh,
shaky ground going
yes,
on here with the Flyers. So I think that there's room for them to improve on
for
these
sure.
metrics and use this as a building block to then level up on those other stats, right?
Yeah, I think so. Now, here's the other thing. Again, this is something where, I'm going to sound like a bad guy here, probably like with the Keith Yandel situation, but like Erik Johnson has already played his 1,000th game. If Andre's healthy enough to play, Zamula played great. Johnson can't play this game. Like he just can't dress it. You give him you give him the stick with his suit on, and that's that. Like that's just the way it has to be.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen. So here we are, and we just have
I
to
mean, but I'm
kind
just
of
saying that's
accept
not
that.
the best thing for the team. It's not.
I don't think that's a terrible thought. I think it could be true in a lot of
Well, you
ways,
don't think
but
Zamula had a good game? Like who would come out?
no, I absolutely think Samula
Yeah.
had a a good game, and I
So now
think
you're going to take him out and ruin his momentum. Like that's what I worry about. That's why I
yeah,
say this.
100%, 100%, but Erik Johnson's gonna be in the game against the Avs, and there's no way around it. So you just have to work around it,
Yeah.
and that's
And the
what it
Avs are a
is.
fast team. It's like it's not ideal to have somebody who's a little slower in there.
Right. I do want to talk about Travis Sanheim
Yeah.
because I think it's important. Looking at his ice time, 27:38. It's below the above 30
Thank
for the
God.
last couple of games. Thank God. He is fifth in the NHL for defensemen in terms of time on ice per game at 25:17
Yeah.
on average. Interesting note that Brock Faber is sixth, and he's the top guy in ice time per game on a quote unquote good team, in the top half of the standings. But all the defensemen above Sanheim are on struggling teams. And that shows like
Right.
when you're looking to to get yourself back in a game or you're struggling defensively, you have that one guy that you put out there a lot, and Sanheim has been that guy for the Flyers.
Yeah, I would say that the one misnomer in those stats is the Vancouver Canucks shouldn't be a struggling team, so Quinn Hughes is going to have those numbers
Yeah,
regardless.
now he's the other guy. He's
Right.
just below Brock Faber on that
Right.
list.
Right.
So, of
So
course, that makes sense.
right. But no, I mean, this is terrific. And I don't mind Torts trying to get him on Team Canada. That's what a coach does. In the end, though, if it were to come down to Makar or Sanheim, as good as Sanheim's playing, they're taking Makar. It's about the team concept, and there's nobody as good offensively to cause problems than Makar. They're not going to care about Makar's defense. But Sanheim's playing great. This is the best hockey of his career. He could make it if there's an injury. It's going to be a hard road. There's a lot of good defensemen.
Right. So Sanheim has 2 goals and 3 assists in the last 2 games. He's tied with a bunch of guys at 11 points, but tied for
Right.
second, ironically, with Rasmus Dahlin, who scored against the Flyers in that game.
But he was a
With
disaster with penalties. Oh my God.
Sure, 100%. But
So
they both
Sanheim's
have
better at this point. He is.
correct. Totally, but they're tied with 5 goals so far.
Right.
The aforementioned Makar has 6 goals, but he's a -6. Sanheim is a +3, which
Right.
on the Flyers is pretty
It's an
spectacular.
accomplishment. No. It's +3 is a big
Given the ice
accomplishment.
time. Given the ice
Absolutely. Oh
time.
yeah, and who he's covering, no
Yes.
question. That's a big deal.
Yes. So Brad Shaw compared him to Seth Jones in terms of who guys he's worked with, who's always ready to go. But I think it'll be interesting because Bradshaw specifically said that he's going to match Sanheim up against McKinnon, and he's looking forward to that matchup.
Well, we'll see if it lasts the whole game. That's all I'll say. They may not have a choice. They may just do it anyhow. But yes, that's a tall order. McKinnon has 31 points, something like that. So yeah, you could try and bottleneck him. That's your best bet. But even if he's shooting from the outside, he could still hurt you. And he is the kind of guy that even if you keep him to the outside, he still may get a wraparound and go around you.
We're going to talk more about the Colorado Avalanche and some big Flyers questions that we have right now coming up next. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join the over 10 million users and sign up today. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money for yourself this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make those picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. So download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNHL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. PrizePicks, run your game. On tomorrow's show, we are going to recap tonight's game against the Colorado Avalanche. Plus, it'll be Phantoms Tuesday. Tough week for the Phantoms, but some interesting individual results. So we'll get into that. Plus, we'll be answering your mailbag questions on the Wednesday show. So get those in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or send us a message on any of our socials at lockedonflyers. So now that we're in this weird roster situation. Now, Emil Andrae is hurt, so we don't know what that means going forward, but you would have to think there's an interesting challenge when Drysdale returns.
Sure. And honestly, at that point, I mean, we know Johnson will hit the bench then. If Andre's not injured, he's got a lineup spot. He does. Like, I just don't see any way around it. And then the problem is it Drysdale or Zamula? And they may split them for a while. They may just see who's playing better. Like, and I'm okay with that. I think, that may be the way it has to go.
I absolutely agree. I think as long as they're giving guys 2 games in a row as opposed to
Yes,
going alternating back and forth, I think that's okay. You have 2 to 3 games in a row
right.
there. Now, I think the other big question we're looking at is Anthony Rashard because
Yeah.
he's got 2 goals in 5 games played. Morgan Frost, on the other hand, has 1 goal in 16 games played. He's getting benched, and it bringing up the inevitable trade rumors for Morgan Frost here. So I think that it's reasonable to do that. Is it something that's realistic right now? I don't know yet.
No, right now, unless you got bowled over, it wouldn't make sense. And to be honest, I have to play him in the Colorado game. I need strength up the middle. Like, I know you've been winning some of these games, but this is another massive. You're talking about Middlestat, McKinnon, Rantanen. You need Morgan Frost in there, honestly. They're probably not going to play him, but you need him. You need him for the faceoffs. You need him for the fact that he's faster and can get the puck out of the zone. And you need him for the occasional really good passes, even if he's not scoring. Like that, they're going to miss that for this game.
Right, and interestingly, in those stats for the last 3 games, one of the things we haven't talked about yet is those faceoffs, right?
Yeah.
So, the Flyers are at 51% even for the season as a whole right now. In the last 3 games, 46.9%. What's the difference?
Yep.
Morgan Frost,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, we know that.
So, I
But it's
think that
interesting. It's interesting. And I have to just say it like this. It just boils down to this. Obviously, Kate said at the beginning because of Jet Luchenko, not because Torts didn't like him. Torts likes Cates. Cates does win some faceoffs. Most of the time, Frost is better on faceoff than Cates, but Cates will stay in because Torts likes him. And Frost has a harder time getting in because Torts is kind of almost fed up with him. Like, this is the dynamic on the team right now.
right, and so I think it's the question, will kind of play itself out in terms of, is Frost being compared to Cates? Is he being compared to Rashard in terms of decision making? And I think we need more time to make that
Oh, of course. I mean,
evaluation.
yeah, Rashard is right now riding the wave of being in the league, getting some points, but he is going to have to score to stay there, like he is. It's different. He's not, he's not Morgan Frost in a lot of different ways, but he is faster and he is getting more points right now. He may just be a temporary plug, and we have to understand that.
Right, and I think the other question that I think we have to table for now because of the Urson injury situation, but has Fedotov earned that backup role? Are we concerned about Urson overall? And can we deal with Fedotov and Kolosov for a stretch?
Well, they're not. I mean, going with three goalies is never smart. I know Colorado's doing it, but they're doing it because Georgiev stinks right now.
Yep.
Um, So nobody is really stinking that bad on the Flyers. And if Fedotov plays like this, you have to send Kolosov back. And if Kolosov decides he wants to go to Minsk, then so be it. But right now, you can't keep Kolosov there just to keep him here because he's not going to play enough. And that's not fair
Right.
to the player, and it's not good for his development.
Right. And I think for now it'll depend on Urson's health, and down the road
Yes.
we'll see. I think
Yeah, they're not
that's
making the
kind of where
decision
we're at.
tomorrow.
Right. Right. So, turning our attention to the Colorado Avalanche, the biggest stories with them is the return of Nishushkin, Jonathan
Yeah.
Duran, and Miles Wood. Huge impact on that organization. They've been struggling early in the season, and I think this is going to provide them a little bit of a boost moving forward. It's going to take some time to adjust, but I think that they're kind of getting back on the horse a little bit, despite I think that loss to the Caps on Friday. Caps are just playing out of their mind, and
They're
Connor
right now, the
McMichael
Caps are
is
playing like one of the best
ridiculous.
teams in the league. So yes,
Yes,
you could get stung that way. Nishushkin also is really good defensively, right? So I do think
yes,
it's going to be a big help. One of the dynamics, though, in this game, and I have somebody shooting the game for Sportsology, and I made sure there's pictures of Nishushkin, Kovalenko, and Michkov at different various times on the ice because there is going to be a little bit of a rivalry there. Now, Kovalenko was pretty buddy with Michkov at the rookie showcase. They talked it seems like there's a, they were meeting each other, maybe even for the first time, or maybe they knew each other. I don't know that, but they seem pretty, in pretty good stead. And so now I think it's one of those situations with Nichushkin's coming in there, and, Michkov's going to want to try and outshine them, and they're going to want to try and outshine Michkov. So we'll see how that goes. That'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, I think so. These matchups are going to be absolutely bonkers in this game, given the skill that's on the Avalanche. And looking at their practice on Saturday before their travel day, they actually split up McKinnon and Rantanen onto separate lines for the
Right.
first time in a long time. They moved Duran up to the top line up there. So they're giving us a little bit of a different look just because I think they were knocked back by that Caps game and they felt
Right.
like they needed to spread the wealth a little bit. So the matchups are going to be, I think, more difficult in some ways.
In some ways, but again, they default like the Penguins. If things go bad, all of a sudden you see Crosby and
Fair
Malkin
enough.
together, and you're going to see that here too. But Drouin has that past with McKinnon, and so they're always trying to revive that. That's hard to do. It's a long time ago.
Yeah, and as you mentioned with Georgiev, the goaltending has been the big Achilles heel for the Avalanche this season so far. Trent Miner made his NHL debut against the Caps because he had to come in relief, right?
Right.
So I think that is where the Flyers can take advantage here,
Yes.
is if they can get their shot on target. And I think with Michkov, with Konechny, with maybe Rashard, definitely Travis Sanheim, there's some opportunity here.
Yeah, there's opportunity. You definitely have to take a lot of shots. No question about it. We don't know which guy will be in net. Maybe it'll be Annunen again.
Mhm.
I don't know. But you have to take a lot of shots. You do. You do have to try and build up an early lead, which the Flyers aren't very good at. They did it against the Sabres, but it wasn't an
Can't
insurmountable
do that
one.
against the Avs.
No, it's going to be hard. But that's what they have to try for, because that is their Achilles heel. If for some reason they get good goaltending through one period, they're going to start gaining a lot of confidence, because they said that part of the problem with that game against the Caps is the goaltending really sucked the life out of the team. So that's what you have to shoot for as the opponent.
Yeah, and looking at, again, some notes from their practice on Saturday in terms of what the coaches were talking about, they know they have to shoot more and shoot better,
Right.
especially against the Flyers coming up relative to what they did against Washington. And obviously the Flyers blue line is not as good as the
No.
Caps blue line overall. So they're going to have those chances. It's just I really see this as a high shot blocking game for the Flyers.
They're going to try it. But again, the problem with the Avalanche is they have guys that can go around shot blocking. Yeah, you just have to worry about giving too much space to Rantanen, because the Flyers like to collapse down low, and Rantanen can still pick the top corners, but the other part of this is Rantanen could also get into the crease. So it's a hard matchup to try and, get rid of Rantanen and McKinnon in a game. And then you still have guys like Middlestat. Now, it does help that Colton isn't there, because I think he was up to like 8 goals before he got hurt. So, there is a little bit of a break that way.
Yeah, I think so. So big challenge for the Flyers coming up tonight. There's an interesting week for the Flyers ahead for the rest of this week. We're going to get into that with our Nemesis of the week and kind of a look back at the other goings on at Saturday night's game against the Sabres coming up next.
We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data and matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy, because you could avoid all that busy work. I use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Russ, there was so much going on at the game on Saturday night
Yes.
between the Erik Johnson 1000th game, Star Wars night. There was the equivalent of Make-A-Wish from Switzerland. There's a really great young man who got to do the lineup announcement and was all around in the press box and in the Flyers activities. You were there. What stood out to you?
All right, you're gonna laugh. I liked it. Star Wars night's always fun. It was great. The dancers were in. I was walking around the rink earlier, and they were dressed as Princess Leia.
My
But
mom mentioned that to me.
yeah,
She and my dad,
and
they're
that was
season ticket
fun.
holders, so
I
they
had
were
a
at the
preview.
game.
They had a real working R2D2 there in the rink, which was great. I took a picture. I put that up. But the biggest thing was they played Boogie Wonderland, and my question was, did they really play Boogie Wonderland like on Tatooine? I'm not sure. So it was like. They sometimes veered away from the Star Wars music. Like John Williams has so many scores. You could just go the whole game with just John Williams music, but they veered off a little bit, but it was fun.
Yeah, it looked like a lot of fun. One of the fun questions that Jackie Spiegel from the Inquirer asked at practice yesterday of Bradshaw about the military hoodies because they've now worn them
Yes.
for 3
Yes.
games in a row. And he seems to think as long as Torts wants them to wear it, they're gonna wear it. And so far, it's worked out for them as far as a superstition standpoint. So
Yeah,
we'll
I get
see
it.
if they show up in the military hoodies
They
tonight's
will. It's a
game.
guarantee. It's a lock.
All right. Maybe we should put some money on that. Anyway, turning to our nemesis of the week. Last week, um, I talked a little bit about making sure you don't lose the improvement and progress while making Mitchkov a part of it again. They absolutely did that. I am very happy with the results of the thing that I was kind of a little worried about. For me, this week, it's now you got to level up against the Avs, right? And then
Right.
maintain because our other opponents this week are kind of a mixed bag with the Nashville Predators, who have a ton of skill but have had not good results. They're on a 3-game losing streak again at this point, and the Chicago Blackhawks. So I think, being able to play at a bunch of different levels with different style opponents is going to be a huge challenge.
Yeah, my thing is, I was out shopping like a lot of other people, and so Thanksgiving shopping is interesting because a lot of people go for these free turkeys. Me, I never do. Why? Because it's not a great turkey. But I get it. It's free. But I noticed that there are some places that kind of really make you go through a lot of paces to get those free turkeys. And I think at some point it's not worth it. We were chatting with somebody online that was getting the business for just to get that free turkey. So my advice to people is you don't really need that free turkey. It's not that big a deal, but I get it. It's fun to get it for free, but they make you spend an inordinate amount of money sometimes to do it. And I'm not sure it's worth jumping through the hoops.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. You're like all about the holidays. You were talking about Frosty the Snowman too
I
early
was. I was.
last week.
Yep.
So
It's in that
I think
season now.
yeah, it's very clearly on your mind. Love to see that. I think, a little side nemesis for me is the looming salary cap management
Yes.
for the Flyers. Elliot Friedman mentioned on his broadcast on Saturday that next year's salary cap could go up much higher than expected, as much as 95 to 97 million. Right now, it's scheduled to go up to 92.4. That's a huge jump. And I think this is a very interesting time for the Flyers in terms of who they're going to make commitments to, continuing the next steps of this rebuild. And having extra money, it could be a dangerous thing. It could be a very good thing, but we'll see what
I
Danny
mean,
Briere decides to do.
having a lot of money got to keep the league in the problem of having to have a salary cap in the first place. The Flyers were no exception. They were part of the
Oh,
problem.
yes. They
And
absolutely were.
so it's like, it depends how you spend it because you could have too much money to spend and make poor decisions. So we'll see.
Yeah, it should be a really interesting thing. Obviously, they're not going to make any final decisions
No.
on that salary cap until the off season, but
Yes.
definitely something to keep an eye
It'll be
on.
before free
And
agency, though.
oh, for sure, for sure. But, we'll see how the Flyers do against the Colorado Avalanche. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's show, as well as check in with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got Flyers thoughts or questions, you can let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. We're especially active on Blue Sky these days. You can
Yes.
email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at those services too, at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert. Get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.